Hello and welcome back to Playbook for Podcasting. I'm your host, Cade Largent.
And I am the ill John Largent.
The ill Sergeant, John Largent.
Hey. Yeah, I've got COVID. And, I had it back in January, and it was just a fart in the wind, basically. It was like 1 or 2 days, and I was done. But this one has hung on for a while. And so I was late to the party for the first COVID. I only got it in January of this year. So this is my second bout in about 8 months, and this one's been rougher, but I'm kicking out, so it's all good. So I apologize for my voice. It's not usually this raspy, but I'll do my best.
It's nice that you at least have a voice today.
That's right. I haven't had one for most of the last 2 weeks.
Improvement for sure. So today we're going to get into talking about something that's a little different than our normal topic. It's about our side projects and how we're using what we've learned in podcasting to further advance them.
Yeah, side projects associated with your business, no matter what it is, as long as it's, my philosophy is if it's circular in nature, where the podcast supports the side project and the side project supports the podcast, as long as it's all working toward the same goal or, creating that brand or that experience that you want, those are good things. And creativity is kind of off the charts right now because there's so many with AI and just all the different advances. I'm amazed what I'm able to do in some of these spaces just because the technology is now there, and whatever you can, I think there's a saying, whatever you can believe, you can achieve. And that's true now because everything is just so advanced as far as the technology goes.
Yeah, in this gray area before the robots take over, we should definitely try and, put them to use and, make some value out of them.
Is that why you were watching the Terminator trilogy the other day? You're waiting for the overlord, the robotic overlords to just take over?
Getting prepared. But, that's the great thing about podcasting and any other form of digital media that you're promoting. You can use it to your advantage on whatever it is you're trying to get out there. So I wanted to get into, what I've been working on the side, and I know you've got your own projects you're working on. But to start off, I am launching a self-improvement prompt-led journal business called Purpose Pilot Journals. And it's something that I've been putting a lot of effort into, and I'm really excited to launch it seriously and get it out there and show my message. And for all the people watching, this is one of the first ones we started on.
Productivity powerhouse. I like that because that can apply to so many different jobs, so many different endeavors, entrepreneurial, self-improvement. The sky's the limit. We're always, I think, if you're always looking to self-improve, there are tools out there to help you do it. And I think 80% or 85% of the billionaires out there, you may not want to be a billionaire, but if you do, just know that like 85% of them journal every day. And it sounds crazy to think that, Elon Musk or Zuckerberg or any of those people are journaling, but apparently they are, and they're doing it on a regular basis. So I think you're onto something there.
Yeah, the motivation for me came, last year I talked with some friends who had, gone to therapy and other things like that, and they said that was something that really helped them work through their issues. And so I made it a point this year as my New Year's resolution. I was going to journal every day. And so far I've stuck up with that. So I'm on my second journal of the year. It's filled up. The first one was front and back, and now I'm on the second one. I'm about a quarter of the way through. But yeah, the point was just to, write down my thoughts, what I did that day, and just kind of keep a personal log of, what I did that day so that I can look back on it. And it's been super beneficial for me, and I'm trying to, grow that understanding of the power of journaling. And I wanted to make sure to add a little bit of my own flair to it. So all of the pages on the inside are actually unique. So I don't know if you can see that, but yeah, it has your own self-reflection area. It has different prompts. It kind of helps you work through what you're trying to write down, so you're not just staring at a blank sheet of paper.
So what have been some of the most beneficial aspects of journaling for you? Because I'm not a journal guy, but I need to be, and so I'm working on that. I do keep a pretty fat calendar. This is my calendar, since we're doing show and tell, and so this is 12 months. It probably doesn't show well, but it's heavy. And I use it every day, and it keeps track of my day, but it's more task oriented. I don't really share a lot of my feelings. You know me, I'm kind of a old school, grouchy old man, I guess. But I seriously, I do think that it's helpful. But what has been most beneficial for you in journaling and kind of understanding more about yourself and what you want to do?
Yeah, so I think the first major benefit for me is just getting your thoughts on paper. I think a lot of times we have, challenges or, things we're upset about that live in our head. And when things live in your head, they kind of fester, in my opinion. And you can really...
And they grow sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. And so for me, being able to, end my day writing on a piece of paper and really putting down how I feel, it just helps to get it off your chest and off your shoulders. And you can kind of, it's out there now. I can kind of work to start letting it go. And so that's the first thing for me, is just, being able to work on, my thoughts and feelings. And then the second thing is, it's a great tool for keeping track of milestones and even things that aren't milestones. I find myself going back in my journal all the time and saying, what day did I do this? What day was that? What day was this? And I can find it, because if it was at all important to me, I wrote it down. And so, from the beginning of this year to now, there's been a number of milestones, asking my girlfriend out, going to Cancun, going to New York, a bunch of beneficial things that, I find a lot of value in. So being able to keep track of that and go back on it is really, really cool. And I find myself using that a lot.
So for a podcaster that is, doing a lot of different things with their with their brand or their podcast, their show, whether they're repurposing things, do you find that using a journal is something that a podcaster could find beneficial, not only to reflect on their progress as a podcaster, but I think in a lot of ways you could become, just like with any other type of practice, you can become more proficient in your communication skills, your writing skills, your interviewing skills, because you're journaling all of these different things that you're doing, and so you can reflect on that, and it actually creates some opportunity for you if you use it like you do, where you go back and kind of take stock on different things that you've done and remembrances of big events. I think those are important aspects of podcasting. So share how you think, from a podcaster standpoint, having a journal, you don't have to buy it from Cade, but
I'd appreciate it if you did.
We don't want to make this full on shill, but in general, if you wanted to have a podcaster that's doing regular journaling, what do you think the benefits of that would be?
Yeah, so, podcasting can be super beneficial for other people to hear your thoughts, but sometimes you need to be able to write down your own thoughts and really structure, because, we find sometimes with podcasters, when they stop, coming up with something new or unique, it can become stale. And so I think being able to journal your thoughts and, really look at it on paper and find a new creative aspect to view it from, and maybe create an episode that you didn't think about. I find that my thoughts, once I write them down, are a lot easier to interpret and become more valuable, and I can kind of meld them into new ideas. And so I'll be up at night with my lamp on, just writing down ideas, because I'll go to bed and then my brain's still turning, and I have to wake up and write it down. So just having a place for that.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you say that, because right before we started recording, I was working with one of our clients who is a sports psychologist, and we were talking about journals. And it's really interesting that this all kind of comes together, because she requires her clients that come in to do journaling before they come in so they can talk about those thoughts, those feelings, those issues. She works with a ton of athletes. She also works with a lot of retired military and people that are dealing with PTSD. And so those folks have a lot of things going on in their head. And so, we were talking about how she should develop her journal to be both specific for her clients, but also she has a large podcast audience. And so engaging her podcast audience and having a journal is something that you could incorporate into an episode, each week. For where, sure. She has a lot of sayings that she says. She's, I call her the queen of the one-liners because she just has these great sayings that she comes up with. And at the top of each one of the pages is one of her sayings, and then that kind of sets the tone for the theme for the journaling for the day. And not only does that work in her practice, but it also works with her podcast audience. And I think creative ways like that are essential in evolving what your podcast is and what your brand is in general.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you touched on something important there, is that when you tell someone who is not familiar with journaling, buy a journal and start journaling, that might be a bit more intimidating. They might not know what to talk about. So the whole, point of view that I saw this from was that, let's make the journals themed. Let's make them apply to people that are trying to work on a certain aspect of their life versus just as a whole. And so, this is the productivity powerhouse one. We also have a gratitude and kindness one where people can, who feel like they want to work on their gratitude and feeling, grateful for what they have, and kind of realigning that mindset, that they can do that with, guided prompts so that they're not feeling so overwhelmed about what they're writing about. Because like you said, having themes really makes it a lot more doable, I would say. And so that's kind of what we're working on doing.
Yeah, I remember reading a book a long time ago, probably 20 years ago maybe, and by one of the great sales teachers of our time, Brian Tracy. And he always talked about, you have two different mindsets, and he called them locusts of control. And he's like, if you have an external locus of control, you are more concerned, or you have a mindset of gratitude and of thankfulness and things like that. But if you have an internal locus of control, you're all about yourself. You're all about self-gratification and doing all the things that are, people would seem as greedy or selfish or those kind of things. And he talks about shifting that. But one of the things he says in his core reading, I can't remember the name of the book, but Brian Tracy is kind of one of the godfathers of sales training, is that if you start journaling about your gratitude and your thankfulness, your mindset will switch from that internal locus of control to your external, where you're thinking about others and how you can serve your community and how you can do other things that don't necessarily shine a spotlight on you personally. And so I think more and more people are realizing that. And so having a journal that is specifically focused on that, I think, is a really cool thing, that you're able to make them specific for specific reasons, I guess, is the best way to say it.
Yeah, exactly. And, I think there's so many different aspects of your life that journaling can benefit. I want to come out with a church journal where, you're writing down some of the lessons you're learning at church. You're keeping track of the messages and things like that. I'm looking into doing journals for teachers, doing journals for med students, just anyone who wants something in between a blank piece of paper, a planner, and like an actual diary. All along those lines, because like you said, it can benefit anyone if they're interested in self-improvement and narrowing their focus on what's important.
Yeah, no, is part of your process, I work in the senior care space and work with caregivers and all different people in that area. So when you're creating a journal or you're planning to create a journal, do you actually get feedback from the people, the end users, so that you understand or have a better understanding of of what specifically they would like in a journal?
Yeah, so right now, the journals that I've been creating have been just, trial. And what I'm doing is I'm coming out with what I think will look good, and then I'm going to people and asking, what do you like, what do you not like, what do you think I could change or improve on? And then I'm going back and, adjusting from there, because, the first 3 ideas that I, decided to pursue as far as like for journals, I made a giant list of like, I think 12 different potential journal ideas. And I sent it to, my group chat of 15 young people that are, around my age. And I said, what 3 of these do you think speaks to you the most? And it was the productivity one, it was the gratitude and kindness one, and the other one was just the mindful mornings one, where it kind of helps you align your day and prepare for whatever you have going on. And so that was like, okay, great. That's the feedback I need. That's what I'm going to start on. And, I got started on it, and that book you showed me, Start Ugly.
Oh, yeah.
I just kind of went with that, and, I'm figuring it out as I go. But I think
ready, fire, aim.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But just, getting down and dirty and figuring it out, and not being opposed to feedback. That's
well,
my strategy.
you talked about starting ugly, and a good friend of ours, Chris Kremitzos, wrote that book, but it really applies, and a lot of podcasters know who he is. He's the founder of PodFest, which we'll be attending in January down in Orlando. But it always blew my mind when we would go to like a PodFest early on, especially when you would say, he would ask questions, or somebody would ask questions. How many of you have started a podcast? You're at a podcast festival. How many of you have started a podcast? And a good number of hands would go up. But then he'd ask, how many of you have been thinking about a podcast? And more hands would go up. How many of you have been thinking about it for more than 6 months? A lot of hands go up. How many of you have been thinking about it more than a year? Hands go up. And to me, I like your approach to things is just get dirty. Just get started. It's going to be ugly. You're not going to know what you're doing. You're going to have hang-ups with Amazon and hang-ups with Shopify and all these different things, but you're doing it, and so you feel more vested in it rather than the old paralysis by analysis kind of thing. And, both in what you're doing and in the podcast space, everybody is guilty of that at some level or another, and then when they do get started, they suffer from imposter syndrome, where they don't think they know enough to be credible in any kind of subject matter. And again, I'm because my head is foggy from my illness. I don't know who said it, but it's like you don't have to be the be all end all to be to talk about a subject. You just have to know a little bit more than the people that are listening. Yeah. And it's true, and it's the same with your journals. That I'm sure you went through this and didn't know a whole lot about book publishing and those kind of things, but you're doing it and you've done it, and you can find your name on Amazon now as a book publisher. So yeah, it's those kind of things that I love, and I also really just encourage people every day to just don't let FEAR get in your way.
I agree. Yeah, it's some days it's hard because I'm like, I don't know what direction I'm going in. Like, what do I need to work on? When you're doing a project for yourself, whether it be podcasting or anything else, it seems like a lot. And so planning. And
it is a lot. It doesn't seem like it. It is a lot, yeah.
But planning and journaling or whatever other tools you use to keep track of what you need to get done is essential, at least for me. And it can really prevent you from, burnout or worrying or any other, challenge that'll keep you from succeeding. So, yeah, that's where I'm at.
Well, I think, first of all, I'm proud of you for putting this Purpose Pilot journal company together.
Thank you.
You're not the oldest guy in the world. And just the quality of what you have delivered. You and your partner Tiffany have put together an amazing blueprint for just a massive opportunity as far as creating different types for different people, and I think you're gonna find yourself being very successful with that. And I know you're only partway through the first part of the journey, and it's a marathon for sure. But it does go to show that even when you're putting things together and doing things on your own and having these side projects, I think if they're in alignment with your beliefs and what you're doing, you can find a way to incorporate them both into your world. And so, again, congratulations on that. That's really exciting. I'm excited for you, and I can't wait to see what happens next with that.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm really excited about it as well, and I think that I can provide some good products for people that really want to work on themselves. So I'm excited about it.
Well, I think you've said it all this episode. I'm trying to stay awake not because the subject matter is boring, just because I'm in between medication and need to probably crash. But one thing I do want to say before we leave, though, Cade, is that we're seeing a lot of growth in this podcast. And I know it's just us talking, father and son talking about different things that we're working on and the podcast industry and clients we work with. But I really do want to thank you, because we said this going into this podcast. This was not going to be the most polished, the most professionally put together, because we really want to kind of be real about it. There are other places and people that we listen to that have the real polished approach to talking with their audiences and sharing with their audiences. And we just want to be real and just wanted to be kind of be natural in this moment. This is how he and I interact on a regular basis. Although I do get a little more physical with him, because sometimes he comes around. But but I do want to thank you guys for listening. We're seeing more engagement on our social media. We're seeing more listeners. We are actually getting outreach from people that want to come on as a guest. And so, at some point we're going to transition to where it's just the two of us talking, to where we're going to bring in different experts in the world of podcasting, in the world of producing, in the world of content creation, because we think that's what you want, and because you've told us. It goes back to what Cade was saying. He talked to his best friends and figured out, or people that he knew in social media, and they told him what they wanted. And we've done the same thing. We've listened to you. We've heard your feedback and gotten some feedback online, and we're going to continue to create content that you're interested in. And we're going to, I'm going to put my little East Texas sling on it, because I've got a twang in my voice, and Cade's a city boy. And but between the two of us, we're going to continue to create content that we think you like and that you're interested in.
Yeah, thank you guys for listening. We really appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.